Okay, so for you guys, we're looking at power, cost of electricity and cost of power. So you guys know what a watt is. You know what a kilowatt is. A kilowatt, of course, is just 1,000 watts. And if you're looking at power consumption, let's say that we have a light bulb that draws 1.5 amps. Well, the power it consumes, remember, is current times voltage. Well, the current is 1.5 amps. The voltage is 120 volts, right? Standard, right? You guys, when you guys did your stuff, did you typically use 120 or 110? 120? Okay. The reason for that, technically, your sine wave goes from negative 170 volts to a positive 170 volts. It's what we call an RMS voltage. We'll actually look at how that's calculated at some point before we're done with the semester so you can see where it comes from. So 1.5 times 120, that's 180 watts. So that's what we call an instantaneous power consumption. At any given instant, that light bulb is using 180 watts. Well, it's hard to quantify an instant of power. So what they do is they take that level of power usage over a unit of time. So a watt hour is 1 watt of power being used over 1 hour of time. So if this light bulb here were left on for 1 hour, 180 watts times 1 hour, it would use 180 watt hours. So let's look at a dryer. A dryer is typically the one running on 220 volt. And is typically drawing anywhere from 10 to 20 amps, depending on the dryer. So we're going to put it in at a 15 amp. So let's say you have a dryer that runs, we're just going to go 1.5 hours, is what the cycle is. It's a 90-minute drying cycle. So the power consumption in one drying cycle. Well, the power itself, 15 amps times 220 volts is 3,300 watts. Now, since that's so large, I'm going to make this conversion. How many kilowatts is that? 3.3. Good. Just moving the decimal point 3 spots. That is 3.3 kilowatts. So then the consumption is the power times the time. So that's 3.3 kilowatts times, kilowatts times 1.5 hours. Which is going to come out to be what? $4.95? 4.95 kilowatt hours. That is the power consumed by that dryer in one 1.5 hour drying cycle. So let's look at the charge. Typically, right now, I think it's like 14.8 cents a kilowatt hour. So in other words, that's $0.148 per kilowatt hour. So that dryer costs, back to the dryer, 4.95 kilowatt hours times $0.148 per kilowatt hour. Now, if we're being careful with our units, we see the kilowatt hours cancel out. We got kilowatt hours on top here and on bottom here. So it's 4.95 times 0.148 is 0.7326. That's in dollars. So that means 73 cents worth of electricity to run that dryer for a cycle. Now that's the rate of the dryer. That's assuming it's running efficiently. Most dryers will cost a little bit more than that. You got clogged up vents for the lint vents and stuff like that. But typically about $1 is what it costs to run a dryer for a cycle. So let's go. Remember, how many of you had parents that yelled at you, shut the lights off? You know? So let's look at that light bulb again. A 1.5 amp light. Again, we're going to go 220 volts. Or not 220, sorry. 120 for the light. And let's say you're in a room that has 4 bulbs. If it's wired correctly, each bulb will draw the 1.5 amps. So the power here, the instantaneous power dissipation here, is your 1.5 amps times your 120 volts, which is 180 watts per bulb. 180 watts times 4 bulbs ends up being, what, 720 watts total between the 4 bulbs. Or 0.72 kilowatts. Now let's say you say, screw it, I'm going to leave that light on all night long. So you leave the light bulb on for 10 hours. So the consumption, the power consumption there is 0.72 kilowatts times 10 hours, which is 7.2 kilowatt hours. So your cost, 7.2 kilowatt hours times your 0.148 cents per kilowatt hour, $0.148, I should say. Kilowatt hours cancel out. 7.2 times 0.148 cost you $1.07. Leave that light on 4 bulbs for 10 hours. Now 4 bulbs, that's a pretty decent sized room. Most of your bedroom lights are 2 bulbs. So you leave your bedroom light on for 10 hours for about 53, 54 cents. Any questions? So that's basically the gist of that second worksheet for you. I'll let you guys have the last 8 or 9 minutes here to get through that and finish up what you need to. And then I'll see you again on Monday.